Hello everybody, welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, and I have just a couple of announcements to start. First of all, tonight, November 19th at 9 p.m., Conversations with Dr. Pam, and we're going to talk about salt and all the confusion about salt. Is it okay? It's not okay? How much? Does it affect hypertension and all those issues? So we'll have a good little thorough review of the research and an opportunity to ask questions about that topic and anything else you'd like to ask questions about too. And then a reminder that in just, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks now, we're starting the Wellness Forum Advanced Studies program. This is where we have 2 conference calls a month. One is programmed instruction. The other is whatever the participants want to talk about. The classes are 2 hours each. It's a 3-month program, and we'll rotate the topics. So the programmed instruction for the first session is going to be the China study in whole. So if you've read the book, we're going to review it. I'm going to provide you with slides and really help you understand the take-home points and how to communicate this to other people. And if you haven't read the book, well, you'll learn all the good stuff that's in those books, all right, both whole and China studies. So call our office if you're interested in more information about these things. Now, last week we were talking about pharmaceutical misbehavior. My gosh, we could just cover that and nothing else in every one of these broadcasts, but I did want to share a new development that I think is worth looking at. Johnson & Johnson just agreed to pay $2.2 billion in criminal and civil fines to settle a case in which the company was accused of promoting an antipsychotic drug called Risperdal inappropriately. And the settlement also included a couple of other drugs, including another antipsychotic drug as well. It's the 3rd largest settlement a drug company has made in the history of these types of settlements. And $2.2 billion is a whole lot of money, at least I think it is, but unfortunately I think that this is just a cost of doing business for these people. Well, according to the Justice Department, J&J marketed the drugs to elderly people with dementia, disabled people, and to young children. I mean, that's really aggravating, thinking about picking on people who are disadvantaged, none of whom were candidates for the drug. So anyway, J&J states Risperdal was safe and agreed to put this to rest by making this settlement, but shareholders and a lot of people have been hurt by this behavior. Now, just to give you some background, Johnson & Johnson tried to get the FDA to approve Risperdal for dementia patients almost immediately after it was approved for treating schizophrenia in 1993. And in a rare circumstance, because the drug companies usually get their way with the FDA continually turned down the request and basically said that it was inappropriate for use in patients with dementia. Well, that didn't deter Johnson & Johnson, which developed a sales force called Elder Care and gave them written materials, sales materials, claiming that patients with dementia could benefit by taking Risperdal, and it would reduce things like agitation, confusion, hostility, and impulsiveness. Of course, the risk of the drug was completely neglected, which included increased risk of stroke. And J&J benefited. In 2004, sales of Risperdal hit over $3 billion. Now, J&J is not the only company that has been guilty of marketing drugs inappropriately to elderly people. Similar plea agreements have been reached by Eli Lilly, maker of Zyprexa, AstraZeneca, maker of Seroquel, and Abbott, the maker of Depakote. So this is just very prevalent in the pharmaceutical field. The FDA also did not approve Risperdal for children and people with mental disabilities, but J&J targeted these groups too. They actually got sales reps and instructed them to call on child psychologists and facilities that treated children and to promote the drug for conditions like ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder. The government says that J&J was well aware of the fact that the risks for children taking the drugs were significantly higher than even for adults. 4 whistleblowers were involved in exposing the misbehavior, and while one of the lawyers representing these people states that this will be a deterrent to other drug companies, I wish that were the case, but again, this type of money, while it sounds huge to you and I, it's just a cost of doing business for the drug companies. Now, on to something that's a little more hopeful. I mean, we have to cover these things because we have to continue to educate people that FDA approved doesn't really mean anything and that you really need to question everything you're told by medical authorities, et cetera, et cetera. But let's go on to something that's really positive, and it has to do with genes and diet. All right, so we still have a lot of people out there being told by health professionals, and they really believe that genes control your health destiny. That if you have high cholesterol or diabetes, that it's because you were dealt a poor genetic hand. And the reason I dislike this so much is first because it's not true, but second of all, it turns all of us who subscribe to this theory into helpless victims, because after all, we don't get to choose our parents, but we can choose a lot of other things like what we eat. And there's growing evidence of this. And so I wish more of the studies showing that genes it's not that they're irrelevant, but they take a much smaller role in what happens to us than we realize. I wish that this stuff got more attention. So I'll give it more attention. In the year 2000, a study was published that I think should have been on the front page of the New York Times. It was carried out at Duke University by a professor and one of his students. It was a radiation oncology professor, actually. The two started with fat yellow mice, known in the research community as agouti mice. And the reason they're called this is that they carry the agouti gene, which predisposes the mice to be ravenous, overweight, and yellow, and also predisposes them to develop cancer and diabetes. When agouti mice breed, their offspring are yellow, obese, and prone to disease. But these two researchers managed to get the mice to produce offspring that were brown and slender and not susceptible to diseases like diabetes and cancer. Their lifespan was much longer than typical agouti mice also. So how did they do it? Well, they changed the diets of the mice mothers, feeding them a diet rich in something called methyl donors, small chemical clusters that can switch a gene like the agouti gene off. So what foods do we find methyl donors in? In foods like onions, garlic, beets, plant foods. Mice fed the methyl donor-rich plant foods, passed on the agouti gene to their offspring, but the diets muted the effects. So again, we're all stuck with some genes, just like these agouti mice were, but whether or not they are switched on depends upon the choices we make. The same thing happens in humans. There are a lot of diseases that run in my family, but I don't have them because I eat differently than my family members. Even more important, not only can you avoid these diseases, but if you happen to have eaten your way through some pretty bad habits into a disease like diabetes or coronary artery disease, you can often eat your way out too. So here we have it. Mice who are bred to be overweight and to develop disease don't do so when their mothers are fed a different diet and they adopt a different diet. So start eating your plant food full of methyl donors. It's a great way to avoid common diseases and to begin eating your way out of some of them if you have developed them. All right, that's all for now. We'll be back to you on Thursday. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it. Have a great day.